Hey, Queens. I'm going to put my glasses on because we have a lot to talk about today. Hormones, periods, menstrual cycle, negative symptoms. I mean, all of the things that us female athletes deal with on a monthly basis. And I love this topic because the menstrual cycle is one of the most misunderstood things because a lot of girls and women have no clue what even goes on during their periods. They don't learn about it in school. They don't even know that they have certain phases with very unique hormonal fluctuations. They don't know how long a normal cycle should last. And the biggest one, they don't realize how much power they have to feel amazing when their hormones are going up and down during the menstrual cycle. Let's take it back to a funny story when I was in, I think it was in the sixth or seventh grade, when we started to learn about our periods. It was a really awkward time. I mean, middle school is just kind of funky because you're learning this, and I think it was called family life class. That was like the actual class where they like put the female reproductive system on the screen, and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is so awkward. My teacher's talking about all this, and I literally don't know how to react. And it's also terrifying because then the teacher proceeds to say, oh, by the way, when you turn 12, maybe 13 years old, you're going to start bleeding. I literally dropped my jaw and was like, are you freaking kidding me? I have to deal with this for the next 3 to 4 decades? Like, this is insane. And I am such a baby when it comes to blood and just it just makes me queasy. I'm afraid of getting my blood drawn. I'm afraid of getting shots and just anything that has to do with blood. I know it sounds disgusting, but that's just how I've always been. And when we started learning about periods in family life class, I was like so nauseous. And I had to go to the health room because I freaking fainted. They put the picture of the reproductive system on the overhead and they said, by the way, you're going to start bleeding at age 12, 13. And I about lost it. My face got ghost pale. I was such a wimp during this time. And I remember the teacher had to escort me out of family life class and I had to go to the health room to just gather myself. It was traumatizing. So since then, I've definitely changed my view on the menstrual cycle and being a female and this being a part of my life. But up until now, I had my ups and downs with it. And when I was in high school, I never really experienced such negative symptoms from the cycle. And every female is different in what she experiences. And we'll get into this later on how to solve these negative symptoms. But in high school, I was pretty okay. But I also had friends who had cramps so painful that they couldn't even work out. Or they just had such a heavy flow that they were always very like insecure with what they wore during that time, which is totally understandable. And by the way, I'm glad that they're starting to get rid of the white uniforms because it's just a relief for all of us, right? I've had friends who just would be so fatigued during that week right before their period that they just couldn't focus in school. They had no motivation to get homework done or go to soccer practice. And I felt for them because I had never really experienced those negative symptoms. But fast forward to college and getting more into my 20s, everything changed. And for a while, I thought it was just because, oh, well, I'm getting older and this is just a part of me getting old. So, what I started to experience was those painful cramps, like someone's like stabbing you in the uterus type cramps. And it would always be on day one for the first 6 hours. And it was just so crippling for so many years. And I would just be so upset and so resentful. Like, oh, why do us women have to deal with this? Like, men have it so much easier. Like, this is such a pain in the butt that we all have to deal with these stupid symptoms from our menstrual cycle. So, for many years in my 20s, I thought I couldn't solve this problem. I thought it was just a part of being a woman, and I just had to kind of suck it up and deal with it and deal with that I was a female and this was just how it was. Boy, I was wrong. It took me 30 years to figure out that I actually had power over my hormones. And I really want to hammer this home with you guys because this is what's not taught in your schools, in even just the medical field by your doctors. If you have a cramp, oh, just take an Advil. Oh, well, if you have an irregular period, just take an oral contraceptive. A little disclaimer though, I'm not saying don't take oral contraceptives. That's for you to outweigh the pros and cons. But usually adding a pill or some sort of medication is not going to really get to the root of the problem. So a lot of it could stem from what you're eating, how your gut is functioning, which really affects your whole body, your immune system, your brain, and just everything that you do on a daily basis. So it's really important to do your research and to realize that you are a female, you're going to have a menstrual cycle and you should have a regular one every single month. You should see it as a vital sign. It's a vital sign to how healthy you are and how healthy your body composition is and how balanced your hormones are. But when we take it beyond just having a regular menstrual cycle, newsflash, PMS is not normal. So all the negative symptoms that I just went over in this episode, bloating, cramps, fatigue, lack of focus, and mood swings, these are all symptoms that with a good diet, you can mitigate, but also get rid of altogether. I'm just so excited to share this with you guys today because I feel so empowered by picking nutrition that helps me with my hormones and makes me get rid of all those negative symptoms. And I finally am in a place where I feel balanced. I don't get painful cramps anymore. I always have such a stable level of high energy. My brain feels sharp. I'm just so motivated for life and I just am excited to share what I've been doing and what I've been learning from female medical doctors and amazing gynecologists that I follow. And I will link all of them in the description below so that you can check them out. But they give such great nutrition and lifestyle advice for us females to really take charge of our menstrual cycle. And I really think that's important is for females to take charge of the menstrual cycle and to not be resentful about having certain hormones and different fluctuations and to really be in control of your lifestyle. I mean, that's true female empowerment to me. And I look back on what I was doing in my 20s when I was not feeling good during my cycle. I didn't do anything about it. I would just sit there and complain and be bitter and like curse my gender and that I was a female and that men have it easier and like us women deal with so much. I choose not to do that anymore because life is way more fun on the other side when you stop complaining and you take charge of everything that you can control. So, what do I do now? What's totally changed my symptoms for my menstrual cycle? So again, I have gone from pretty much the worst symptoms possible to hardly having any at all that week before my period. It is like so mind-blowing. Okay, let me tell you guys what I did. So what I found was I was not getting enough protein first and foremost. So Usually during the last half of the menstrual cycle is when there's more muscle breakdown. There's a lot of inflammation in the body due to the big rise and then the big dip in the progesterone levels. And it's really important to make sure that you're getting enough protein so that you can still build muscle, so that you can promote good protein synthesis for muscle repair. So, what I had to do was I had to double the amount of protein I was eating for each meal. I was only getting about 10 to 15 grams. And for me, for my body weight, I needed 25 to 35 grams of protein a meal. And honestly, sometimes I up that to even 40 some days, especially on hard workout days and after strength training sessions. I up it really high. And I'm going to link a medical doctor in the caption below. Her name is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She does muscle centric and protein centric medicine. And her message is so amazing. And she has a lot of research to back that you can't go wrong with adding more protein. And there's no such thing as having way too much. I am pretty sure you guys aren't going to go out there and eat 300 grams of protein. Usually the recommendation is 1 gram per pound of body weight, but I tend to do more because that's where I feel at my best. That's where I feel my muscular output is good on my workouts, especially my speed days. Oh my goodness. My muscle output is insane. And then I haven't experienced muscle soreness in forever. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I was in pain. Maybe a few years ago when I was still dealing with these negative symptoms and I was super protein deficient. But now, oh my gosh, the game has totally changed. So, up protein intake is number one. And I'm going to encourage you guys to eat mainly animal-based proteins, and that's because they contain all the essential amino acids in them for that muscle building and that muscle repair. And they're also more bioavailable, which means they're much easier for the body to absorb and use the nutrients quickly. So if you're deciding between a piece of steak or a Quest protein bar, you want to prioritize the steak because you're going to get more bang for buck. I eat red meat at every single meal. You can judge all you want, but man, energy is piping. All right, the next one is upping my omega-3 fats. And this one blew my mind. And I think with fats, people believe, well, if you eat fat, you're going to get fat. That was the message back in the 90s when we became so scared of consuming fat and even just butter or even like nut butters. But what fats do, especially ones that are rich in those omega 3s, is they help to really reduce the inflammation during the second half of the cycle and that week before the period. So they help you to have a sharper brain, which is great for focus and increased energy, increased motivation, because our brains are made up of mainly fat. So if we're not getting fat in our diet, then how are we nourishing our brains? And as athletes, you have to have a brain that functions at a high level. It has to be sharp. Everything you do in sport is a quick decision. So you have to be on your game. And fats are what is going to make all the difference in your cognitive function. Another thing that upping fats has helped me with is my mood regulation. And I would say protein has done the same too. Protein is just such a great mood regulator. And the combination of the two has been just so potent. I feel like my mood is very calm and stable. And I feel peaceful. And it's just like this new joy for life and just this peace, even when like something crazy happens and some life stressor comes up, whether it's in, business or relationships or family stuff, it's like just calmness. And there's this level headedness. You don't react as quickly when your brain is functioning at a high level. There's not as much emotion that's amplified. So I would say just that combination of both the fats and the proteins have been just super. And some of my favorite fat sources, again, when you're picking your foods, you have to look at foods that are most nutrient dense and bioavailable. So, nutrient dense, they have all the omega 3s and they have vitamins and minerals in them, and bioavailable, they absorb quickly. So, something that absorbs quickly is something that has just one ingredient. So, as an example, a piece of salmon is a piece of salmon. There's nothing else in it. It's just fish. Whereas Peter Pan peanut butter, I'm not saying it's a bad option, but it's going to be secondary because it has other ingredients in it. It has extra added sugars in it. And honestly, sugar is the worst thing for inflammation during that week before the period. So it's really important to look at your foods that you're eating and ask yourself, okay, is this going to make my hormones work for me or against me? And that's another thing, and I've struggled with this in the past too because during that week before the period, you are going through so many spikes and dips in hormones, and it is a roller coaster. And it is so tempting to reach for that box of Oreos or just to dive face first into a pint of Ben and Jerry's and be like, well, screw this. Like, I feel like crap. So I'm just going to get this quick hit of dopamine. So I feel good for like 2 minutes. But then you come crashing down again and your mood is back to where it was. You're still sad. You're fatigued. The low is so much worse than that small high that you get. So I know it's hard to succumb to the cravings that arise during that time, but try your best to maybe go for a protein shake. So you still get some dessert, some comfort, but you're getting something that isn't so high sugar and super inflammatory to the body. And you're getting something that's actually going to help with your muscle recovery, help with your muscle building, and also help with your mood. I'm challenging you guys today to really lean into controlling your nutrition during your menstrual cycle the best you can. You don't have to be a victim of terrible PMS symptoms. It's not normal. We've been conditioned to think that PMS is normal and every female just gets it. No, not really. I've completely got rid of my symptoms. I know many other girls and women who have with just starting with those nutritional changes. High protein, high fat, anti-inflammatory foods, nutrient dense foods, high quality foods. See what happens. True female empowerment is not getting angry about the fact that you have a menstrual cycle and you're upset because you feel like crap. No, that's the most victim mindset I've ever heard. True female empowerment is taking charge of your menstrual cycle by nourishing your body the way that it should be nourished. Queens, I hope this provided some tough love. And please comment below and let me know how you're doing with the high protein, high fat. Try it out. Give it 30 to 60 days, even 90 days, I recommend, and see what happens. See how your hormones start to regulate. You start to feel balance. You start to feel this amazing peace. You're glowing. You have this vibrance about you. All right, that's enough for today, Queens. I will see you on the next episode of Queen Talks.